Why don't we get a little started here? Mr. Thana, are we good to record everything?
Yes, everything is recording now.
Beautiful. Cool. All right, so let's get started. Let me just bring up. Cool. Can y'all folks see my slideshow? Did
Yep.
someone? All right, excellent. Cool. All right. Well, welcome to the Coffee Guild meeting on September 26, 2025. We are here because Naxxramas starts next week. So, trying to keep its agenda pretty straightforward, but I know there have been some questions about what Phase 6 is going to look like going into Naxx, some of our expectations. We're going to hear a little bit from Shamster about strategy and like our thinking around that. Obviously, more details to come when we actually set foot in the place, but there's definitely a lot of things to go over. So, want to make sure people have enough time to grab the stuff they may need to before a queue, and then we'll just have fun and get blasting. So, Phase 6 officially kicks off October 2nd at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's next Thursday. It also coincides with the Scourge Invasion event, which is a time to grab some gear, grab some reputation, and our first official Naxx raid will be next Friday. So the big thing, I know that I have been a squeaky wheel about this, the officers have, but cannot stress this enough. You have to be at least honored with Argent Dawn to enter Naxx. And if you're either honored or revered, there are some material costs. You can find them online. It's really easy. It's a difference between like a couple of Nexus crystals and some gold and some arcane crystals. So the higher rep you are, the cheaper that cost is. If you are exalted, for those in this group, I know there are a small handful who have put in the time to get to exalted. You get in for free. So please prioritize this. If you have somehow decided to not prioritize this, now is the point where you absolutely must. If you are not honored, you can't get in. So that's going to be a big bummer. This is like probably the most pre-signaled thing in the game. It's been known for actual decades that you must be this rep at this rep level to get into Naxx. So please do that. Ask around in the guild. We have people who are doing rep runs all the live long day. There are pugs out there doing Sholomance and Strat Undead. There are quests in Eastern Plaguelands that you can do to get a little bit of extra rep. So please put yourself out there. You can find the people one way or another, but this is very important. If you're like you're really desperate come next week, the Scourge Invasion does have some reputation stuff, but please don't wait until then. We really can't help if you get to then and you're not honored. And yeah, so there'll be a little bit more about this later in the presentation in terms of stuff that we will provide to help pay for the attunement cost, but we will get to that in due time. Cool. So with Phase 6, we are going to be switching up our raid schedule. So one of the biggest changes is we're going to be moving AQ40 from Friday to Tuesday. So, thanks to our awesome success in blasting in AQ40, we have been able to get that down, to well less than 2 hours. So our thinking is that we're going to combine AQ40 and BWL into one farm night. I know that Tuesdays, our numbers kind of tend to fluctuate, from like the low 30s up to 40 plus. So we have a couple of scenarios that could play out. So if we get, 39, 40 people, we'll blast it as usual. We'll get in there. We'll use our buffs as we do, and we'll rip through stuff. If we're in like the low to mid 30s, we're going to do our best. We're going to pug. We may have to, at that point, we'd have to do like a soft reserve thing to fill up our numbers. Obviously, with AQ in particular, pugging can get a little dicey, but we've done it before. It just kind of is what it is. And in the event that we just don't have the numbers or the raid comp for AQ, we'll go into BWL, maybe pull in some pugs. So like we will continue farming on Tuesday. But it really depends on the numbers. So if you still need AQ, still need BWL, this is the night for you. We hope to see you there. But we get it, Tuesday, middle of the week. It's a little tricky for people. So we have like again a few scenarios kind of sketched out for how we'll do that. And then Wednesday, as has been hinted at, we are going to be moving to an MC binding run. So if you are still hoping to get something from a full MC run, we get it. There are pugs out there, but from phase 6 onward, we're no longer going to be doing full Molten Cores. The binding runs, they're pretty quick. They're pretty simple. You really only need like 20, 25 people. So if you are around Wednesday, would love to have you for that, just to kind of make that nice and efficient. We want to get Stevie his Baron binding so we can get a second Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. And we'll be hitting a couple bosses in there, so there is some loot that maybe we can get, like a Toep or something. And then we're also going to be adding ZG to Wednesdays, like an optional ZG. There's going to be all sorts of new loot coming down the pike in Phase 6, especially Tier 3. So we know folks are going to want idols for this gear. So we are going to bring back like a scheduled ZG, obviously contingent on numbers and, the time of evening. But if we can get 20 people together to do an MC binding run, there's no reason that those 20 people then can't go right into ZG. Again, considering, how quickly like a binding run is in like 20, 25 minutes. There's really not that long. So, like I said, Wednesdays for MC binding runs in ZG. Hope to see you there. Then the big one, Fridays, Naxx Ramus. So this is like a pretty big change, but after a lot of discussion and deliberation, we felt that this was the best approach for us to manage progression in Naxx, given the challenge that it can sometimes pose. So we're going to be starting raid at 7:30 Eastern. That extra 30 minutes can be quite meaningful, especially once we kind of start getting that like early stages of the raid down. And depending on how raid times improve, we may shift it back to 8 p.m. But that 30 minutes is going to buy us a lot of much needed time. So I would say if you're one of the folks who kind of like comes in at 7:30, I would do your best to pre-position your character in Eastern Plague Lands. Obviously, we can summon folks as we can and as necessary. But yeah, this is kind of like the biggest change that we're making for Phase 6. And then finally, Saturdays. So, Naxx, it's a long raid. There's like 15 bosses. There's going to be a lot of prog in the coming weeks. And so thinking about, well, especially this first few weeks, we know we're not going to be able to finish it in a single night. We have folks in the guild who just haven't been in here before. Their only experience really has either been a YouTube video, a Google document guide, or like maybe they went into the Wrath of the Lich King, version of Naxx. So the way we're going to play this is, depending on where we find ourselves come 11:30 or so on Fridays, we're going to, throw up a vote, yes or no, see how people are feeling about potentially coming back for a cleanup night the following night on Saturday. If we get a majority, if like a lot of people are amped up and we're feeling really good about where we are progression wise, then we'll come back for more. If not, then no worries. We'll just come back the next week. We'll take the lessons that we learned and we'll keep progging. The ultimate goal is to get to Naxx down to a single night. And with our guild and our potential and our performance to date, this is totally achievable. But at that point, obviously, we would only need to raid on a single night. But again, we know we're probably not going to get there. I mean, the frost resistant stuff for Saffron alone and the runes, like we're just not going to have all that for the first night. But we're going to do our best and we'll see how far we get. There are a few ways that Friday could play out. But our goal is to do as much as we can. And like I said, see where we are come the end of the night next Friday, and then we'll proceed from there. So this is really important. Naxx Ramus, it's a tricky place, right? There's a lot of mechanics. It's the most difficult of the raids. And yeah, like sometimes like someone can make a small mistake and then we'll wipe. And, in those situations, it can be frustrating. And so like my ask, and I think really just the imperative for our group, is to support each other and cheer each other on as we head into Classic's hardest raid. Just taking a look at these pictures here, like we've had so many adventures together as a group. We've come so far. We've done so many cool things. This is like the next big adventure for us. So my ask to you is, if somebody messes up, causes a wipe, to please, think positive about it. There's really no space for being rude or snippy or toxic in voice or chat. It's kind of literally against our community rules. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you made a mistake, would you want someone to kind of like, trash on you in voice? Like, we don't want that. So be kind as we grind. As you can see from this photos, like we faced big challenges in this game in the past. We whooped them all. Naxx Ramus will be no different. So let's just keep on keeping and have a good time doing it and being kind and good to each other as we do it. So, as far as strategy and prep go, I'm going to pass this to Sham in a second to just kind of share some thoughts. But like I said, ultimately the goal is to finish Naxx at a single night. I think we're kind of thinking this will probably take us, within the span of a month. It really boils down to how prepared you are, your overall commitment, and your focus to make this happen. Um, we are expecting folks to continue to come, with their consumes, with their world buffs. If you are finding yourself having trouble with this, again, because this is going to be a period with like a bit more of an aggressive raid schedule, reach out to an officer ASAP. We don't want anyone to feel stressed by a 20-year-old video game. So we can, do our best to help you, whether it's helping you strategize on getting your consumes, finding times for world buffs. I mean, Twixie is always doing DMT runs to throw out those buffs to people. So please take advantage of that. And please, please, for the love of the Earth Mother, please go into those strategy channels in Discord. There's a ton of information in there. Pretty much everything you're going to need to know about all the bosses and all the trash and all the mechanics. Everything you could need is in there. And yeah, so please avail yourself of that information. You have a week to do so if you haven't already. The more prepared and knowledgeable we are, the fewer sort of like remedial things we have to do once we're in Naxx, and we can like get into the more challenging stuff. But yeah, let me kick it over to Shem for a couple minutes to share his thoughts about how we're looking at Naxx strategy overall.
Hey everyone. So I've gone through all of the assignments for pretty much a full Naxx, and first of all, like we're in a really, really good spot. Like our raid DPS is really, really good. It's significantly better than the raids I was doing Naxx with last Classic and full clearing in one night. So like we can and will get there. But just like Chud said, it's gonna probably take a few weeks at least. So just be patient with us. So a big thing I did want to cover was just consumes. Obviously, it's going to be expensive for the first couple of weeks, so just try to get yourself ready now. So I'm gonna mention some of the consumes right now. I'm not going to cover all of your standard, full buff, we're going hard consumes, but the sort of unique ones for Naxx. We are going to probably want everybody to flask on the progression stuff as we're learning stuff. So whatever flask applies to your class. The really expensive one that's probably gonna. Everybody always talks about the frost resist pots, and like we'll go through a lot of those on SAF. But the shadow protection potions, like they're getting expensive already. So do what you can to farm as many as you can. We'll talk about what the guild can and will be supplying later, but shadow protection potions is a big one. You're gonna go through a lot more of those than I think a lot of people realize, because you at least a couple on Lotheb and a couple on Full Horseman can be nice as well, and Saffron too. So shadow prot potions, real big one. So the normal protection potions, having a couple fire prot, nature prot are all nice to have. Not hugely necessary, but the first couple weeks we'll take every advantage we can. This is a really unique one. I'd like for everybody to just have like 5 snowballs. I'll share the macro. On a nub, there's a big knockup, and it's a ton of fall damage when you take it, and this can make that 0. So protection potions, snowballs, sappers, and holy waters. If you have holy waters, those are fantastic. And then all the normal stuff. And then on the frost resist side, melee DPS, caster DPS, let's aim for 210 buffed as a starting number. That's a really, really good solid number. Healers, I'm leaving it up to you guys. 0 can work fine. 105 is also a fantastic number. There's a whole chart for why that's a good number. So if you're fine and you feel like I can do this with 0, that's fine. If you're not as confident and you want to be a little bit on the safer side, 105 is like a perfect number. And then tanks, I'll talk to Stevie, but me, Stevie, and Haruto just bring a couple pieces of fire resist gear for Mograine on Full Horseman. And that's about all I got.
Thank you, Sham. So speaking of the bank stuff, so we are going to be providing Greater Frost protection potions for Saffron progression. We have quite the pile of these, so stay tuned to get those. When it comes to the Greater Shadow Prot potions, yeah, like Sham said, these are getting pretty pricey. We are going to be providing them the first week, but kind of like the Nature Prot potions for AQ, we do expect you to generate the goal to get these. Now, I think the good news is, yeah, they are expensive now, but I would expect that the market's probably going to get pretty saturated with these as like people put more demand, people put more in the market. So try to like see if you can snipe these on the cheaper side during the middle of the week, maybe earlier in the morning or late at night when those markets kind of get a little bit more shallow, and just do the best you can. It's an important part of it. These things do get pricey, but with like kind of the right approach, you can get yourself a decent little pile. Um, I know quite a few of us have been kind of gathering these along the way, so kudos to you if you have done so. If not, please make this a priority. These things will be needed in Extremis. For the attunements, we're going to provide the Nexus crystals. We have a nice little pile of those. They are a part of the attunement cost. But raiders are responsible for gold, arcane crystals, righteous orbs. Um, if you have the attune add-on, or if you just go to go to Wowhead and read their posts about it, you can find the information on the exact cost. But again, please prioritize this. We don't want people showing up next week not having what they need to actually get into the raid. When we do eventually put together our initial night comp, if you show up and don't have your stuff, then someone's going to get your place. So if you want to be there for the first night, please prioritize this. This is super important. It's going to make it more difficult for us to like get the right kind of progression going where everybody is learning this stuff over time if folks are literally locked out of the door. For those who are going for tier gear, for folks who win these tokens, we expect that you are going to gather your own materials for completion. You can also find that stuff online. There are scraps that drop randomly in the raid, and similar to how we do the idols for AQ, we'll be awarding these as we receive them to token recipients, making sure that those are going where they're needed, essentially. Um, Raid consume requirements that we've had going for a while now for phase 5, those are unchanged. Obviously, there are some consumes that are specific to Naxx, but the general position that you must come prepared and consumables are part of that is unchanged. Because Naxx is gonna be kind of a hit on the flask front, as Sham suggested, we'll ease off the flasks in AQ if you want to stop using those in AQ. I know some folks will want a flask anyway in AQ. That's on you. But if you want to ease up on the consume spend for AQ, that's totally cool. Naxx is the priority, 100%. And then finally, Atiesh, the Giga Staff of the Guardian. We're going to give it to Zand. We had a long conversation about who we felt in the guild should wield the potential to wield this big staff, and Zand was kind of a no-brainer. It's one of those folks who gives a lot to the guild, does a lot of stuff in the background. So we're very excited to see him hopefully assemble this thing over the course of Phase 6. For those who don't know, Atiesh is a very powerful legendary staff in the game that it requires collecting splinters that have a chance to drop from bosses. There's also like a big key item that you get from Kel'Thuzad. It's a huge endeavor, so please pray to the RNG gods. And like we have been doing with the Rag Mace and then also Thunder Fury. Let's cheer on Zand as we are proceeding to get this very, very cool item. Any questions? That's my presentation.
I don't have a question. I just have an addendum with the tier 3 tokens. If you are awarded a tier 3 token, outside of these scraps, you're expected to have those extra items that you need. Like for hunters, it's arcanite bars and cured rugged hides. You're supposed to have it crafted by the next week, or at least be able to have it crafted. And it's your responsibility to provide everything that isn't the scraps. And we want to make sure that people, when we're giving out the tokens, it's helping us with prog right away. So make sure that you look up what your pieces will need and that you have those prepared before you put in BIS on RC Loot Council, for example.
Yeah, that's a great call out. We don't want these tokens sitting in player banks. If you are going to roll BIS to get one, you need to be actively preparing to use it. Yes, some of them have some pretty high costs, but this is also some of the best gear in the game. So please proceed accordingly. Any other questions?
The only comment I have in regards to Frost Resist, in case people don't know, there's a really early quest when Naxx comes out where everyone with 2 Essence of Water and 2 Blue Sapphires, along with I think 2 Frozen Runes, can get a pair of Epic Pants with 40 Frost Resist on them. I assume we'll have enough Frozen Runes from mages farming and just clearing it in general to hand those out before we get to Saf. And that is a very easy 40 Frost Resist to get, 2 Essence of Water and 2 Blue Sapphires are not that expensive all in all. Something to be aware of.
Excellent call out. Any other questions, thoughts, comments?
If we're not clearing in one night off the beginning, would we consider swapping to start different wings for the following week?
We have discussed that, excuse me, about like in the context of general progression, like potentially bouncing around. We're not 100% settled on that question yet, but we are talking about it and thinking about it. So that's an excellent question, and there'll be more to come on that as we proceed.
It's worth the wait to, if we clear military week 1 to then do A-bomb week 2. I understand the concept, but also the idea that if you clear military week 1, let's say it takes you 2 hours, week 2 you can probably do it in what, an hour and a half, and that's just more loot to make progressing the other stuff easier. It's give and take. I really like the idea of clearing 2 wings week 1 and clearing 2 wings week 2. But if we clear the same 2 wings week 2, that's 6. That's like 12 more pieces of loot. Or no, like it's 3 per boss. 18 pieces of loot, something like that.
I think the
So,
big thing is just to see like how we do once we're in there, right? And like once we have some information and some data on how we're performing on this boss or that boss or this trash, then I think we can make some informed decisions about, do we want to like start in this wing or that wing? But again, like I said, it is something that we're thinking pretty actively about, and that'll be evolving conversations as we go.
yeah, it'll will be a long conversation Shamster and I have after our first week in there about how we want to go in there week 2, especially without me being there week 2.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
So we'll be doing on Tuesday night, we'll be doing AQ40 first or BWL first? Or did you say that, Jeff?
I think we're going to start with AQ. Yeah, I think in
Okay.
terms of like the priority for like where we want to get loot from, AQ is still the big one, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Just trying to plan out like where our hosts should be.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
The idea would be that we can unboon as usual in AQ, and then if we proceed as usual, we'll have like an hour left on the 2-hour buffs, and we can pretty much blast BWL fully with that.
That makes sense.
Quick question, just because I'm not sure I heard you correctly. Are you saying we're doing the military wing first? That's the plan.
It's undecided.
It's undecided.
Okay.
Yeah, that was an example. The idea, the what's what I'm looking for? The popular idea is Spider first because it's quote unquote the easiest and it has a bunch of good items, which is probably what will happen, but that is not set in stone. Things can change. Shamster and I have not locked in what we want to do.
Cool. Thank you.
But we will make these decisions before we go into Naxx, so there'll be the goal is for there to be no surprises going in. So just keep an eye out on the announcements page. We'll be telegraphing this stuff over the coming days.
Are we still doing a wish list for this phase? So I guess we need to have it in by next Thursday if we are.
We will not be doing a wish list for this.
Okay.
good question. Anything else? Last going once, going twice.
Do we have anybody who can make snowballs, Sham?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Unless somebody can speak up in here if you have the engineering item. You don't need a bunch. Like 4 or 5 is plenty for many weeks of raiding. You only need it if you get knocked up on a noob or the post patchwork trash before the second guy, whatever his name is.
Cool. All right. Well, I'd say if folks have any other
There's-
questions, or no, go for it.
There's a
Stevie.
question in chat for Miner. I assume it's Miner, the guy in Treasury Council. Could be wrong.
We just decided to streamline how we distribute loot and using the list as a additional factor. We weren't really following it per se because items have known to just start falling into place now as we get more geared. And we want to make sure that the item goes to the biggest upgrade, whoever's the most prepared, and just so that the list doesn't get confusing to some who wonder why, hey, this was on my list, but I didn't get it,
Plus, it's Naxx. Every item in there is pretty much the best you can get in the game. So
Yeah.
Yeah. You get an upgraded regardless. Cool. Going once,
Unless you're
going
Feral
twice.
Druid.
That's true. Sorry, Ferals. Enjoy your level 42 helmet. Cool. All right. Well, if you have any other questions, drop me a note. Drop an
second.
officer a note. Oh, is there one more?
Yeah, just going back to UE because he still needed more clarity. So the idea behind it is that the confusion seemed to stem from the wish list having any influence. Really, it didn't. And that was kind of like the streamline that we're talking about. Without having that additional item in there of a wish list or like, wish list. Without having that, it makes it just the Raiders best in slot if it's really the best in slot there is. And then if there's not a best in slot item that somebody wants just for fun, that would be something that would be along the lines of like a wish list. So we don't really need to do that. We would just have the item rolled off as like a toy in the actual roll. So people were getting it kind of a little confused. That was the biggest point that Miner made, was that, hey, this is on my wish list, I didn't get it. That was never the original intent of the wish list either. And whether or not folks took it in after it was communicated is up in the air. So we wanted to just scrap it entirely, to not confuse people, to be like, hey, if this is on my wish list and, it drops, it's like an HR, straight to me. That wasn't ever really the goal, but it kind of got lost somewhere in there. So we also just didn't want to have that on top of making the actual loot decision and trying to figure it out that way. That's like the biggest thing behind scrapping it.
Yep, 100%.
What is the Loot Council's plan for the miscellaneous frost resist pieces?
I don't think we defined a full plan on that, but it'll probably go to like those who need frost res most, or G bank it, and then we figure it out after raid if it's like the OP.
We also have a meeting later this weekend too, so we can kind of add that to the discussion.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we'll put that on the agenda for that for sure.
Yeah, just my 2 cents, because DPS are really the only ones that need frost resist. It's hard to like prioritize who should get the necklace with 25 frost resist on it or something. I've heard a lot of videos in guilds say they just roll them off, but do with that what you will.
That's most likely what will end up happening because everybody needs it evenly.
Yeah, I was gonna say that at first, but I don't want people to get the wrong ideas before we make a full decision.
Also, yeah, like Twixie said, our meeting's tomorrow, so that's all stuff we're going to hash out then.
These are great questions. So if you guys think of anything until tomorrow, please feel free to like post or ping an officer or something like that. because these are great ideas and things we want to address.
Cool. How are we doing on time? I can't see my clock right now.
7:33.
33.
All right. Well, we should probably end it here. Thanks so much for your time. Like Twixie said, come to an officer, drop me a note if you have any other questions. We'll be rolling out more information as the days come. So thanks for your time. Oh, by the way, I am also the main tank now. I was doing awesome in Stratholme, so thanks again for the note. And yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see y'all in AQ.
Hey, Tread, did you see that Yui had asked a question again?
Oh, he did?
That's a pretty good one, too.
He's asking about the bench.
Where is it?
He says,
So
when,
when,
if ever, can we expect the bench to come back? I'd imagine we're going to bring our best and brightest for the first few weeks.
Yeah, so we're having the conversation about our first week composition. Obviously, there is a lot to consider about who goes in week one. So we are going to we're going to get folks that comp as soon as we can. We just have to discuss it a little bit more. We are going to be putting up signups for Naxx in the next minute or so. Hint, hint, Xandin or Scythar, if you want to push that button. So please sign up for Naxx if you want to join us next Friday, and we will get that comp out to folks as soon as we can. We are anticipating pretty high signups, so there will likely be a bench. And yeah, we'll just go from there as we always have.
Well, as everyone leaves the RP group, you can whisper Bonu in. I believe also Zedhand has assist right now. So either of us can invite you to the AQ ID. Otherwise, take a little break before raid. Get here, have fun. Let's kill some bugs.
I know a bunch of you are going to that raid group, but if you want to come back to the meeting group, there is a org portal outside the inn.
Oh, that's a good question, Yui. Yeah, the easing up on flasks for AQ, we can start that tonight. That's totally fine.
Yeah, AQ is